The Manhattan skyline glimmered like fire caught in glass. From his penthouse window, Khalid Al-Fed could see the whole city breathing below him. Streets alive with yellow cabs, neon signs blinking like restless hearts, the pulse of millions of lives colliding. He stood alone, a crystal glass of water untouched in his hand, his posture rigid, his jaw tight. 35 years old, heir to one of the most powerful dynasties in the Arab world, a billionaire by birth and by ruthless ambition. Yet in that silence, he felt like nothing more than a prisoner in a tower. Power meant little when loneliness sat beside you every evening. He had wealth, prestige, influence, everything except the one thing he had once sworn would never be taken from him. Her name haunted the edges of his thoughts like a forbidden prayer. Claire Anderson. She had been the gardener's daughter. He, the angry young heir, suffocated by tradition. She was 17, bright and fearless, meeting his brooding gaze beneath the olive trees with storm-gray eyes that saw through his arrogance. He had been 20, drowning in a world of control, and her laughter had been oxygen. Their love was reckless and doomed from the start, snatched in hidden corners of the palace gardens, whispered in the shadows of marble halls. And then it had ended in silence. His father discovered them. Claire's family was cast out overnight, her father dismissed in disgrace. Khalid was shipped to Dubai under threat and shame, every attempt to contact her cut off, his letters returned unopened, calls unanswered, his family's power sealing her away as if she had never existed. For 20 years, he carried that wound like a scar under his tailored suits. Tonight, the ache returned sharper than ever. He placed the glass down on the marble counter and scrolled absently through his phone. Then, almost impulsively, his thumb tapped on something he hadn't used in years. A food delivery app. Ridiculous. A man with chefs on call did not order pizza, yet some wild, buried part of him whispered, "Do it." He ordered the simplest thing, a margarita, cheese, basil, tomato, a taste of the past, no instructions, no barriers, just real. Minutes later, the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Al-Fed, your delivery is on the way up," the doorman's voice announced. Khaled's heart raced absurdly. He tried to steady himself. It was only pizza, but deep down, he knew it wasn't. It was defiance, memory, hunger for something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in decades. A soft knock came. He opened the door, and the world collapsed. She stood there, holding the box in both hands, wearing a faded green jacket and a red baseball cap. Her hair tucked away, her face bare of makeup, but her eyes, those storm-gray eyes, were unmistakable. For a heartbeat, time shattered. "Claire." His voice cracked like dry earth. She froze, then masked it instantly. Extending the box as though nothing had changed, she said flatly, "Pizza for Al-Fed." Their fingers brushed as he took it, the briefest touch, but it burned through him like fire. "Thank you," he murmured, voice rougher than he intended. She nodded once, stepped back, and disappeared down the hall. The elevator swallowed her whole. Khalid stood at the doorway long after she was gone, the pizza cooling on the counter behind him. His chest rose and fell too fast, his throat tight with 20 years of words he never got to say. Her name rolled inside him like thunder. Claire Anderson. The wound he thought buried had just been ripped open. Claire's hands trembled as the elevator doors slid shut, trapping her inside a mirrored box. The faint scent of expensive cologne still clung to her jacket, dragging her back 20 years in a single breath. Her reflection stared back at her, older, wearier, and carrying too many battles. But beneath that, she still saw the girl who had once kissed Khalid Al-Fed under a jacaranda tree. She pressed her back against the wall, clutching the empty insulated bag to her chest as though it could steady her racing heart. What just happened? She hadn't spoken his name in more than a decade, hadn't let herself remember the way he used to smile, hesitant, as though laughter was dangerous in his world. She hadn't thought about the way his hands felt when they held hers, the way he had once sworn under the desert stars. "No matter what happens, I'll find you." But he hadn't. Not until tonight. Claire staggered into the lobby, nodding at the doorman's polite smile, though she felt like a ghost drifting through the marble hall. Outside, the cold Manhattan night slapped her cheeks. She crossed the street quickly and slid into her rusted Honda Civic. The pizza order notification on her phone blinked, but she ignored it. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles whitened. Khalid Al-Fed, here, in New York, just as powerful, just as breathtaking, and just as untouchable as he had been when she was 17. Once they had been two kids wrapped in forbidden love. Him, the heir to a dynasty. Her, the gardener's daughter. Their worlds collided in secret until one day it all vanished. She remembered the night vividly, the way her father packed their lives into the back of a truck, his jaw set in silent humiliation, her mother crying, begging her not to look back. And Khalid? He never came. She had written to him, dozens of letters, all returned unopened. After a while, she stopped trying. Reality swallowed her whole. Her dream of studying architecture dissolved under bills, her mother's illness, and eventually the birth of her son, Liam. A fleeting romance had left her with a child, and she had carried that responsibility ever since, alone. And now, fate had tossed her back into the orbit of the only man who had ever made her believe in forever. She laughed bitterly, the sound hollow in the car. Of course it had to happen like this. No makeup, a baseball cap, delivering pizza to scrape together extra money because her receptionist job wasn't enough to cover rent and medicine. And he had opened the door in a tailored suit, golden-eyed and impossibly steady, like time had only sharpened him. For a single dangerous second, she had forgotten everything, forgotten the pain, the betrayal, the years. But then she remembered, and walked away. Because what could possibly come of it now? Back in the penthouse, Khaled stood rooted by the door, the untouched pizza box abandoned on the counter. His heartbeat hadn't slowed since she left. He pressed his fingers against the glass of the window, staring at the city lights blurred by memory. Claire Anderson. She hadn't vanished into a happy marriage. She hadn't been swept into a life of ease. She was here, in New York, raising a son, delivering food to survive. The realization twisted inside him like a knife. Why? Why hadn't life been kinder to her? Why had she suffered while he built empires? He had everything, except her. And now, seeing her again, the truth hit him. All of it meant nothing without her. His mind spiraled with questions. Where had she gone after that night? Why had every attempt he made to find her been blocked? Did she hate him for not fighting harder? Did she believe he had abandoned her? And most terrifying of all, was there still anything left between them? When their eyes met, even for that fleeting second, he had seen it. Pain, recognition, and beneath it, something else, something that had survived 20 years of silence. Khalid sank onto the edge of his bed, running his hands over his face. For 2 decades, he had been the perfect son, the perfect heir. He had followed every rule his family carved in stone, built empires, secured their legacy. But tonight, all of that crumbled beneath a single knock on the door. He reached into the drawer of his desk and pulled out a photograph, faded and creased at the edges. Claire, barefoot in a summer dress, laughing by the fountain on the palace grounds. He had kept it hidden all these years, a relic of the boy he used to be. And now that boy demanded something impossible. Find her. Don't let her go this time. 2 days passed, but Khalid hadn't slept properly once. The city glittered. His empire moved as always, but inside he was restless, haunted by storm-gray eyes that refused to leave his mind. For 20 years, Claire had been buried beneath duty and silence. Now she was flesh and blood again, and he could not let her vanish a second time. When the message finally left his phone, it was simple, cautious. Claire, I'd like to talk. Just talk, no expectations. Could I buy you coffee? He didn't expect her to reply, but 10 minutes later, his phone lit up. Fine. 4:00 p.m., Sunday. Cafe Bell on Atlantic Avenue. No warmth, no emojis, just a time and place. But Khalid smiled as though he'd been given the world. Claire arrived early. The cafe was small, tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore, a local place with chipped tables and the smell of cinnamon in the air. She chose the table in the back, facing the door. Her navy coat felt too plain, her jeans too worn, but she hadn't come here to impress him. She came to protect herself. Still, her pulse betrayed her. Each tick of the clock on the wall thudded in her chest. At exactly 4, he walked in. Heads turned. Of course they did. Khalid didn't belong in a neighborhood cafe, a charcoal overcoat, a cashmere scarf, that calm intensity that made the air shift when he entered a room. Yet his eyes found only her. Claire, he said gently, as though the name itself was sacred. Her throat tightened. She gestured to the chair across from her. You're punctual. I didn't want to give you another reason to hate me. The barista approached, breaking the tension. Khalid ordered black coffee. Claire's chai latte already sat cooling in front of her. Then silence. Heavy. Charged 20 years' worth. Finally, she spoke first. I didn't expect to see you again. Neither did I, he admitted, folding his hands. But I'm not walking away this time, not without understanding. Her eyes narrowed. Understanding what? Why everything happened the way it did. Why your father was dismissed. Why you had to leave in shame while my life carried on untouched. Her words came like a blade. And what do you expect me to say? That it didn't ruin us? That I didn't watch my father drink himself into silence? That my mother fell sick while I worked myself to the bone just to survive? Khalid flinched but didn't break her gaze. I didn't know they fired him. I swear it. By the time I found out, I was already sent to Dubai. I tried to reach you. Letters, calls. But my family blocked everything. Claire scoffed, but her grip on the cup tightened. I thought you gave up on me. I didn't, he said, his voice low. But I was too young, too powerless, and too afraid. Her storm-gray eyes locked on his, and for a moment, it was like being under the jacaranda tree again, breathless, reckless, alive. You were the only thing that ever felt real, he whispered. You still are. The barista returned with his coffee, shattering the moment. Claire took a long sip of her latte, steadying herself. I thought I was over this, she admitted softly. But seeing you again, it brought everything back, everything I buried. What happened after? He asked carefully. She looked away. We moved upstate. My dad drank. My mom got sick. I dropped out of college to care for her, and then Liam came along. His expression shifted at the mention of her son. He's brilliant, Khalid said gently. Claire bristled. Don't say that like you know him. I want to, he replied simply. Her chest tightened. What did you expect today? A happy reunion? A second chance? No. His eyes softened. I just wanted the truth. Claire's voice trembled. The truth is, I hated you for a long time. For being free. For forgetting me. I never forgot you, he said firmly. Silence pressed between them. Then, for the first time, Claire looked at him, not the billionaire, not the heir, but the man, older, tired, hungry for something human. Do you have a family? She asked. My mother, 2 brothers. They're still in Abu Dhabi. They want me to marry an ambassador's daughter. His jaw tightened. And you? She raised a brow. I'm sitting right here. Does that look like happily ever after? He shook his head. I've never married, Claire. I couldn't. No one ever came close. The words knocked the air from her chest. He meant it. She could see it in his eyes, and that terrified her. Claire, his voice lowered, I'm not here to disrupt your life, but when I saw you at that door, I realized something. I'm still lost, and no amount of money or success has ever erased you. Her defenses shot up again. You think it's that simple? You show up after 20 years, say a few things, and I'm supposed to let you back in? No, he said. I'm asking if I can earn the right to try. Her throat worked, her eyes burning. She wanted to say no. She wanted to tell him to leave, but her heart betrayed her. Finally, she spoke, her voice firm but soft. I'm not that girl anymore. I have responsibilities. A son, a sick mother. My life isn't yours to step into just because you remembered me. I understand, he said quietly. Claire hesitated, then added, almost against her will. But seeing you again shook something loose, something I thought was gone. His gaze softened. Then maybe we can start with honesty. She nodded once. I'll take that. And when she stood to leave, she surprised even herself. She looked back and whispered, "Don't disappear again." The message came on a Saturday afternoon. Claire was stuck in traffic after her part-time shift at the clinic. Liam had finished his coding club early and was waiting outside the community center. Panic curled in her chest until her phone buzzed with a reply from Khaled. "Of course, I'll pick him up." She hesitated before sending the request, her thumb hovering over the screen for long seconds. It felt reckless, dangerous even, to let Khaled near her son. But something inside her whispered that she had to see what would happen. The community center was noisy with weekend chaos, kids darting across the steps, parents balancing coffees and bags, the faint echo of a basketball game in the gym. Amid it all, a boy stood apart. 13, tall for his age, hood zipped up to his chin, backpack slung over one shoulder. His gaze was sharp, cautious, scanning the crowd like someone who had learned to read people quickly. Khaled's chest tightened the moment he saw him. Liam. He approached slowly, careful not to intrude. "Liam?" he asked gently. The boy looked up, brows knitting. "You're my mom's friend?" Khaled nodded, extending a hand but not pushing it closer. "Yes, I'm Khaled. She asked me to pick you up." Liam didn't take the hand. He just stared at him with those golden brown eyes, eyes so familiar it made Khaled's throat ache. They were his own eyes, mirrored in this boy's face. After a long beat, Liam gave a curt nod. "Okay. Thanks." They walked to Khaled's car in silence. Liam slid into the passenger seat, buckling his seatbelt with practiced independence. The ride began wordless, the only sound the hum of traffic and the tapping of Liam's fingers against his leg in a rhythm Khaled couldn't place. Finally, Khaled ventured, "So, you like coding?" The boy's head turned, surprise flickering across his features. "Yeah, I'm working on a game." "What kind?" "A puzzle game," Liam replied, his voice warming slightly. "You have to build machines to fix broken worlds." Khaled's lips curved, the answer striking deeper than the boy knew. "That sounds like something we could all use." Liam blinked, then, unexpectedly, chuckled. A quiet, sharp little laugh. And in that sound, Khaled heard Claire. He heard himself. He heard something that belonged to both of them. By the time they pulled up to Claire's building, Khaled didn't want the ride to end. He turned to Liam before he got out. "I'd love to see the game sometime." The boy hesitated, then gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Maybe." And with that, he disappeared into the building. Claire was waiting outside. Her arms were crossed, her expression unreadable, but her eyes flicked from Khaled to her son with barely concealed worry. "Well?" she asked. Khaled smiled softly. "He's extraordinary." Claire exhaled, pride and exhaustion mingling in her features. "He's also guarded, like someone who's had to grow up watching me fight every battle alone." The words hit him harder than she knew. He looked at her, not with pity, but with something deeper, regret, respect, and an ache to give her more than survival. "I'd like to spend more time with him," Khaled said carefully. "If that's okay." Claire hesitated. "He's not a project, Khaled. He doesn't need a savior, just consistency, truth." "I understand," Khaled said, voice quiet but firm. "I'm not leaving, not this time." And for reasons she couldn't explain, Claire believed him. The weeks that followed were quiet, almost ordinary. Khaled became a presence, not overwhelming, not intrusive, but steady. He joined them at the park. He picked Liam up when Claire's shifts ran late. He sat through a middle school science fair, cheering louder than any parent when Liam presented his solar-powered robot. At first, Liam stayed guarded, wary, but curiosity began to chip away at fear. Khaled didn't push. He asked questions, listened, and shared stories about architecture and cities, letting Liam's imagination run wild. One afternoon, the three of them sat cross-legged on Claire's small living room floor, blueprint papers sprawled across the carpet. Liam had sketched his dream treehouse, complete with hidden rooms, solar panels, and a library. Khaled traced the lines with genuine interest, offering suggestions, asking how the ladder would work, what materials he'd use. Finally, Liam looked up at him, his voice casual but carrying more weight than he realized. Did you ever want kids? Khalid froze. For a second, the room went still. Then he admitted, I didn't think I'd be allowed. Not in the life I was born into. He glanced at Claire before adding softer, but now, I think it's the only thing that would have made the rest of it mean something. Liam studied him carefully, then shrugged with studied nonchalance. Cool. But later that night, when Claire tucked him into bed, Liam whispered, I like him. She smoothed his hair, her heart caught in her throat. Yeah? He doesn't talk to me like I'm a kid. That's because you're not, she smiled faintly. Liam rolled onto his side, sleep tugging at him. Then, in a voice so small it nearly broke her, he said, He kind of feels like a dad. Claire froze. But Liam was already asleep. She slipped out of the room, her chest tight with fear and something dangerously close to hope. The first knock came on a rainy Tuesday morning. Claire was midway through her shift at the Midtown clinic, juggling phone calls, patient files, and a jammed printer, when the air shifted. She stepped into the lobby and froze. Khalid stood there, hair damp from the rain, coat still glistening. People turned to stare, the gravity of his presence pulling attention like a tide. Even the receptionist fumbled with her blouse, trying to look composed, but Khalid's eyes found only Claire. You can't be here, she hissed under her breath, leading him outside beneath a narrow awning. I didn't mean to interrupt, he said softly. I needed to see you. Claire crossed her arms. Then talk. I want to offer you a job, he said. She blinked. Excuse me? Not charity, not a handout, a real job. Something worthy of you? His gaze was steady. You wanted to be an architect. I remember every sketch you drew under the jacaranda tree. I remember how your eyes lit up when you talked about designing spaces that healed people, not crushed them. I own a design firm now, Sustainable Architecture. We have a project in Harlem, affordable housing. I want you on the team, flexible hours, full benefits. I'll fund your return to school. Claire stared at him, torn between disbelief and fury. Why are you doing this? Guilt? No, he said simply. Because I believe in you. Because I never stopped. That night she sat at her kitchen table long after Liam was asleep, turning his words over in her mind. Could she really step back into the dream she'd buried? Could she risk opening that door again? 3 days later, she handed Khalid her resume. I have conditions, she told him firmly. No special treatment, no press statements, no limousines, and I need time for Liam and my mom. He nodded. Done. And I'm not sleeping with you. To her shock, he only smiled warmly. I didn't ask you to. For the first time in years, Claire felt something stir inside her. Possibility. But possibility doesn't come without cost. It was midnight when Khalid's phone lit up with a name that carried the weight of dynasties. Layla Al-Fed, his mother, matriarch of their empire. Her voice when she spoke was regal and sharp. You're being seen with a woman, an American, a mother. The word dripped with disdain. Do you think this goes unnoticed? Her name is Claire, Khalid said flatly. Don't say her name as if she belongs to us. She does not. She's more than most of them ever were, he shot back. A cold silence stretched across the line. Then came the ultimatum. If you pursue her, you will not do so with this family's blessing. You will not inherit the trust. You will lose everything tied to our name. Khalid's jaw clenched. It wasn't a threat. It was a sentence. And yet, his answer was quiet, unwavering. I would give up everything not to lose her again. The line went dead. The next morning, Khalid found Claire at the office. She looked up from her desk, pencil tapping lightly against a notepad, her face focused. He drew her into a private room. My mother knows, he said. Claire stiffened. And? She gave me an ultimatum. Her blessing? Or you? Her stomach dropped. And what did you say? I told her I'd choose you. The silence that followed was thunderous. You did what? She whispered. I'm not letting you go again, not for anyone. Tears burned her eyes, but she shook her head. Khalid, that isn't fair. You shouldn't have to give up your family for me. I want to, he said simply. All my life I've followed a script someone else wrote. The only chapter that ever made sense was us. I lost it once. I won't lose it again. Claire's throat ached, her defenses cracking under the weight of his words. She didn't answer right away, but she didn't pull her hand from his when he reached for it. That night, she lay awake in her small apartment, listening to Liam's soft breathing in the next room. Her mother's oxygen machine hummed faintly down the hall, and Claire understood something she hadn't wanted to admit. This wasn't just about Khalid choosing her. It was about her choosing whether to believe she was worth being chosen. But the real test came sooner than she imagined. A knock rattled her apartment door one Thursday morning. When Claire opened it, her breath caught. Khalid stood there, but he wasn't alone. Behind him, draped in midnight blue silk, her posture regal, eyes sharp as blades, stood Layla Al-Fed. Two men flanked her like guards, the air around them taut with unspoken authority. The world of marble halls and dynastic power had arrived in Claire's modest Brooklyn apartment, where mismatched mugs and Liam's schoolbooks still sat scattered on the table. Layla's voice was calm, every syllable a measured test. My son has made his position clear. Now, I must understand what kind of woman holds his loyalty so tightly. The silence inside Claire's apartment was unbearable. The weight of silk and legacy seemed to shrink the walls around her. Layla Al-Fed sat gracefully on the couch, her hands folded neatly in her lap, while her sons stood like statues at her shoulders. Khalid remained by Claire's side, but the tension in his jaw betrayed the storm beneath his calm. Claire poured tea into mismatched mugs. Her hands shook only slightly as she offered one to the matriarch. Layla accepted with a faint nod, not warm but not dismissive either. She studied Claire like a puzzle, as if deciding whether she was glass to be shattered or steel to be respected. Finally, Layla spoke. My son has chosen you. He has risked everything for this. Her dark eyes flicked to Khalid. But I cannot return to Abu Dhabi pretending nothing has changed. The world is watching. The family is watching. Claire held her gaze, her voice steady though her heart pounded. I'm not asking for your blessing. I won't apologize for who I am. Layla tilted her head, intrigued. Strong, she murmured. Then, sharper. And the boy? Liam. Claire's spine straightened. He's my son. He doesn't need your approval. But before Layla could retort, Khalid stepped forward. He's our son now. I intend to adopt him legally. For a heartbeat, even Layla faltered. Her gaze moved between Claire and her son, searching, weighing. Finally she rose, her presence filling the room. If you are to be part of this family, she said slowly, then the world must see it, not in shadows, not in secrecy. You will marry, in Dubai, under our traditions, with honor. The words struck like a bell in the quiet. Claire's breath caught, her eyes shot to Khalid. You knew? He nodded, his voice low. She told me last night. Her pulse raced. And what did you say? Khalid looked at her as if the answer were written in stone. That I want to marry you, not for them, for us. Claire swallowed hard. She thought of Liam, the boy who had whispered one night. He kind of feels like a dad. She thought of her mother's last words, frail but fierce. Don't push him away. He loves you. Her voice shook. I need time. Layla inclined her head, as if she had expected nothing less. Of course. But the door does not stay open forever. And with that she swept from the room, her sons following like shadows. The apartment was silent again. Khalid reached for Claire's hands. His touch was gentle, grounding. You don't have to say yes, not for them. Not even for me. But Claire, do you want this? Her lips trembled, but the truth rose from somewhere deep. Yes, I want us. I want Liam to have this. I want a life we build together. Relief softened his face, and he kissed her hands like a vow. Then we'll face them together. The wedding was nothing like Claire had imagined as a girl. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was a declaration. Held in the gardens of the Al-Fed Palace in Dubai, it blended cultures and traditions under the watchful eyes of royals, dignitaries, and the press. White jasmine lined the marble paths, lanterns glowed like captured stars, and a canopy of silk floated above. Claire walked down the aisle, not as the gardener's daughter, not as the pizza delivery woman, but as herself, a woman who had survived, who had fought, who had been chosen, and who finally chose back. Khalid waited at the altar in traditional attire, eyes never leaving hers. When she reached him, he whispered, "You're home." Their vows were spoken in two tongues, Arabic for his ancestors, English for her soul. When Khalid slid the ring onto her finger, he didn't say, "I promise." He said, "I choose you, again, every day." Claire's voice trembled as she replied, "And I choose the life we're building, the one we never thought we'd have." Applause rose like a tide, but for Claire, the only sound was Liam's clear, proud voice. "That's my mom." And when he slipped the ring box into Khalid's hand, his eyes shone with something new. Trust. 1 year later, the New York skyline shimmered outside their restored brownstone. Claire stood barefoot on the rooftop, a baby girl in her arms, Amira, her and Khalid's daughter. Inside, laughter echoed, Khalid and Liam arguing playfully over burnt rice. Claire pressed a kiss to Amira's head, whispering, "You're proof that love doesn't die. It just waits." Khalid came up behind her, wrapping his arms around them both. The city stretched before them, vast and alive, and for the first time in decades, Khalid felt it belonged to him, not because of wealth or power, but because his family was here, warm and real in his embrace. Some stories don't begin in castles or candlelight. Some begin with heartbreak that never healed, a boy forced to forget, a girl forced to survive, and a knock on the door that changes everything. They hadn't gotten back the years they lost, but they had built something stronger, a future, together.